Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Just Economy Podcast. The Just Economy Podcast is sponsored by the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. I'm your host, Cornell Cruz Jr. I am the Executive Director of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. It's reinvest into the community per the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. So a couple of announcements. First, we want to thank you for all those folks who participated in the nonprofit capacity building project grants. We received 102 applications. Granted, everybody won't be funded. However, this shows the need. This gives me the power to go into the other financial institutions and ask for more funding to help support that program and show that the need is great. So even if you don't get funded for that particular grant, please understand that just submitting an application was the key in this project, and this helps us show the need and show that we need to keep this going. Applications are being reviewed and scored right now. We will announce awardees September 23rd, 2025, with checks going out the very next week. So I'm looking forward to that day. And hopefully I'll have even more money as I go and meet with banks. As a matter of fact, I have bank meetings scheduled for next week. As I go and meet with banks, hopefully to get some more funding. So we may be able to fund more organizations than we anticipated. And the next thing is, please look out for the flyer for the Bankers Roundtable. The Bankers Roundtable will be October 8th, 2025, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It's going to be at the Betty Ferguson Center in Miami Gardens. Betty Ferguson Center is across the street from Hard Rock Stadium. So the Bankers Roundtable will be a panel of bankers talking about what they can do and what they're going to do in order to help the community. They will be talking about the Community Reinvestment Act, how they intend to keep and reinvesting in the community per the act. As you well know, the Community Reinvestment Act is under attack by this administration right now. So there's going to be a lot to talk about. They're also going to be talking about building bank relationships. So how to build a relationship with a bank, how to encourage the banks to invest in your nonprofits and the work that you do. So please, we look forward to that and hope to see you there. So today we have a very, very special guest, and Jim Sayih from Special Compass. He's the executive director, and we're going to talk about Special Compass, which a lot of you may not know about. But I saw something some years back on Real Sports, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Cornell. I'm really excited to be here and talking to you before we even got on. It's very interesting what you do. I'm happy for your service.
Thank you. So I sent you some questions yesterday, but one thing I wanted to ask, and what I always say to everybody, because I love history and I love people's history. How did you get to Special Compass?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Special Compass kind of had its own organic grassroots development, kind of like a weekend warrior type thing. You know, my son was born in an emergency room, came out 2 months early from an emergency C-section. Doctors told me to institutionalize him. I just couldn't wrap myself around that. I said he would live a life of abundance, and he would do everything his brother and our family do. I just didn't really realize what that really meant, because the doctors really tried to convince me to institutionalize him, because he just wouldn't be able to do anything. Speak, feed himself, walk, do anything. He'd be a vegetable. I really just didn't see that. Over the years, after his first 5 years, we did incredible, intense physical therapy, which we learned from an organization in Philadelphia called the Institutes for Achievement of Human Potential. So 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, therapy for Michael. That went on for the first 5 years.
Wow.
So at year 5, his brother and I included him to do a duathlon race, 5K run, 30K bike ride, 5K run. So I kind of attached a half bike to my bike for the bike portion. Stroller was for their jog. We wrecked a couple times on the bike because it was kind of a makeshift. And I thought for sure Michael's never going to want to do something like this again. A month later, his brother says, there's a 5K run coming up. Do you want to do it? I looked at Michael. I said, you want to do it? He lit up. He says, I want to do it. So we did it. And that was the beginning of us doing inclusive sports. So parents would see me at finish lines, crossing the finish line with Michael. Clearly, they could see he has a disability. And they said, would you push my kid across the finish line? I said, well, if I do that, what's Michael going to do? He's going to be a spectator. So I started to recruit other guys like me that were runners and said, would you push a disabled person at a 5K run? Hands down, I never got a no. And during this time,
that's incredible.
Never got a no. The whole time, during this time, I was a police officer in Miami. I served 20 years there. So all of this was happening while I was a police officer. So I would ask my peers, and this happened. It was kind of like a weekend warrior thing. You know, as these events would come up, I would recruit people. So we kind of had our own little tribe. And then I retired after 20 years of service in 2007, and I said, I need to do this, but formalize it, because I can't really fundraise unless I'm a 501c3.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I finally became an impact organization, and then and that's kind of how it got born.
And usually, I know most nonprofits are usually born through something happening to that particular person, and that's how they start the nonprofit, something that involves their family. And I brought up Real Sports in the beginning because I first saw something like this on Real Sports. The gentleman had very, very similar to you. His son was disabled and was born that way, and he said he had never ran in his life, and he decided to do it with the son the same way. And he was doing them all over the world. And Real Sports first did this. The first time I saw the story was in the mid-'90s, I believe it was. And then they followed up with him 20 years later, and he was still doing it with the son. And both him and the son, they went through some family things, but him and the son were still together, and they were doing this. So when I pulled up Special Compass and I looked at the website and I saw the picture, I immediately said, okay, this is the same guy, not the same guy, but this is similar to what I saw on Real Sports. So I was very, very intrigued, and I'm so happy that you're doing stuff like that. I mean, people are under the serious misconception, I believe, that they think that if someone is disabled, that they don't deserve to have fun, or they don't want to be a part of any events. And it's very, very. I'm very, very happy that your son gets so happy when you do things like that, right?
Well, Cornell, the father and son duo that you're talking about is Rick and Dick Hoyt.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that when Rick and Dick were doing this, the internet wasn't alive. So I was a young cop. Actually, I was in charge of a detective division, and one of my detectives, the internet just started. So, and I'm already doing this, right? So one of my detectives calls me in the office and he says, Jim, there's a guy doing what you do. So I looked on the computer monitor, and a few detectives gathered around, and we're all watching what he's watching, probably the same things you saw.
Yep.
And it just brought tears to my eyes, and I was just like, I got to meet this guy. And sure enough, a month later, I found him and I met him, and we became friends. They both have passed since.
Yes.
He died first, and then about 2 years later, his son passed. But what a pioneer in our world. I really looked up to him. He was a mentor to me. He was my hero, him and his son. What they've done, they've really broken down barriers for people who are differently abled.
Every time I would see it, they would rerun it. And every time I would see it, or when they do the end of the year, Real Sports would always do an end of the year thing, and they would talk about their favorite stories. And that first year that they did it, that was the favorite story of mostly all the commentators. And you couldn't watch it without some tears coming or feeling emotional. You couldn't watch that show. You couldn't watch that particular segment. And then they go back and show that they went back 20 years later and they were still doing it. and he had been through some challenges with his knees and everything, but he was still doing it, and his kid was loving it. So I'm really now I'm like, okay, I'm in celebrity status now. You actually got to hang with him and meet him, right?
He is an incredible guy. In fact, we went to an event. We arranged to meet at an event that he was speaking at. So we picked him up, and he was in. We have a little minivan at the time. So he's sitting in the minivan with us, and we're driving. And Michael's like, "I can't believe Rick Hoyt is in the passenger seat in our van."
Wow,
and
that had to be incredible.
And what a humble man! Just a humble man, just a giving spirit, loves everybody. And he just. When I talk about breaking barriers, there were people complaining about him running in the Boston Marathon, covering his son like a plexiglass so that, rocks from other runners wouldn't hit his son in the face as he's running, and just debris and stuff. And there were actually people complaining, saying that because he had that shield, it made him more aerodynamic to go faster. So they were complaining that his speed was better with this type of equipment.
Oh God!
Just goes to show you, you never know.
Sometimes people just irk me, man. I'm telling you, I love people, but
he was such a humble man. He just shook his head and he says, "We'll overcome this," and he did. And there were other things when we do races, like we have another Ironman coming up in December that we're doing together, we always have to ask permission. We have to send a letter and say, I want to do this race, and my son is, differently abled, and we have special equipment. Can we participate? And most of the time we get a yes. I just got a no from Colombia. We wanted to do Ironman Colombia in November, this November. And they just say no because they're worried about, obstacles and,
their liability. Is that what they're more worried about?
Yeah. Yeah, so Colombia said no because of the bike course. They thought that the bike course would be too challenging for us. And we just say, we're like anybody else. If it's challenging for them, it's challenging for us.
Sure.
And we're okay with that. And but if you say no, we accept it.
So as you brought that up, and we're definitely gonna get into what Special Compass does, but he's just so intriguing. I got to ask these other questions first. I'm sorry. What are some of besides the no's of not being able to compete, are there any other obstacles that you encounter on this quest?
Well, obstacles like travel or administrative?
All of the above.
Yeah. Well, travel can be challenging, but the airplanes are getting better. They're getting much better at not damaging our equipment and other people like us, the equipment. Sometimes people damage wheelchairs, race chairs, bicycles, So when we travel, if we're on a plane traveling and not in a car, usually we'll take an inflatable kayak. So that's less stuff, hardware once we get to a place to put together. Bicycles, they go into a regular crate. And usually the race chair, it's like a 3-wheel chair. It's kind of long, aerodynamic. And that can fold up. So whenever we get on a plane, we pray that when we land, it's still in one piece. Because if one of those wheels they're fragile. If those wheels get bent, it's not like you could just go to the store down the street and get it fixed, and you only have a day or two before it's race time. But usually we manage. I'd say most of the time things work out good for us. But we schedule way ahead of time for everything because we know we can't it's not like you're traveling by yourself. You have to think ahead and plan for extra time. And I'd rather wait at the location with extra time than to show up late because of equipment damage.
Good. So we're getting the Special Compass. So I understand. We understand how you started Special Compass. What's the mission of Special Compass?
The mission for Special Compass is to help those with disabilities navigate life through inclusion to become independent. And we do that through sports, education, and now housing.
And I'm definitely gonna get to the housing part. So, as far as the sports is concerned, have you developed special programs, special partners in order to do this?
Well, we're still in progress with other partners. We usually the people that support us are like bicycle shops, because we have to maintain these race chairs. These are special race chairs that make it easy on the runners when they push them, so that they're not so heavy. So they're lighter, they're aerodynamic, and it's still challenging pushing another human, but the equipment, the composition of them is important. So bike shops will help us with fixing wheels, welding things, building things, being a little creative with us on how we can be more efficient. But that's about it. Usually the bicycles.
That's got to be something incredible.
Well, Cornell, not just the running. We also do Spartan races. So the Spartans are.
What's a Spartan race?
Those are those obstacle mud runs that you see.
Really?
So we'll take harnesses and we'll take ropes and we'll take carabiners, and we'll take them out in these race chairs. But once we get to like an obstacle, because these races are all obstacles. So like a 5K run, you may have 15 obstacles in a 5K. In a 10K, you may have double the obstacles.
Sure.
And that's including like an 8-foot wall, crawling under barbed wire, going over smaller walls, just doing different things. So when we do those Spartan races, the ratio is we'll pair up like 6 volunteers to 1 differently abled athlete. And that way, when they go over a wall, the chair goes over the wall too. And when you cross the finish line, you're muddy, you're dirty, and you've accomplished all those obstacles as a team. And what a great team building. Some corporations, when they see us doing this and they interview us, I always recommend that. Say, you know what, you should just bring your workplace here and do a race like this, because it makes everybody work together. So whatever drama you have at work, it's going to go away.
That's interesting, because I spent 24 years in the United States Army, so I got a lot of experience with obstacles and carrying stuff on my back. So and going through obstacle courses, because that's one of the mainstays in the military, is everybody has to go through that, whether you're specialized or not. And I can't imagine carrying another human on my back like that throughout an obstacle course. Now, I agree with you. It definitely builds teamwork if you have to do that. You put 6 people in a team and you got to do all these things. We did a lot of individuals. We did do the team building as well, because it's a requirement in the military, team building. But we did the individuals as well. And carrying 60 pounds on my back and doing it was one thing. But actually moving another human being can be a whole nother challenge. So, and those mud things are just, I can't imagine that you would do that with I didn't know you guys did. I thought you just did the biathlons and things of that nature.
No, and recently we did a what's called a as an impact organization, we also support other impact organizations, not in South Florida. We support 5 of them, but one of them is called Piper's Angels, and they support people who have cystic fibrosis, and they have one event a year, and it's a paddleboard event where you start in the Bahamas on a stand-up paddleboard and you finish in Palm Beach on the beach.
Get out of town.
So when I heard about this, I said, maybe we should try that. So I didn't know how to paddleboard, so I registered first.
That makes 2 of us.
So I didn't know how to paddleboard, and I contacted the executive director, and I said, listen, I heard about your organization from a friend of mine, and he said that I should meet you. And he said, well, what do you need permission for? And I said, well, I have a son who is differently abled, and I saw your YouTubes on what you guys do on how you paddleboard across the ocean. And I said, I was thinking about attaching a cord to my waist and putting him in a kayak, and I'll do the stand-up paddleboard, but I'll pull my son in a kayak. Would you approve of that? And he says, yeah, we don't have anybody doing that, and we'll support you on that. And so we did it 3 times.
So, Jim, hold on a second. Sounds like you don't believe there's nothing that you can't that you and your son can't do.
Well, we like adventure, and we like to be included in things. So if there's something going on that's fun, adventurous, we want to do it anyway. But if you're differently abled, we don't want you to sit on the sidelines and not be able to come. So we want to get people out of their houses and just be included, because the same joy you and I experience when we do these things that we kind of take for granted, that it's just we're going to get to do it no matter what, some of them don't. And that's why that's why I'm so glad I'm getting to sit in front of you, because I want to share with people who are listening that people who are differently abled, they want to do everything we do. They don't, just because they're hurt. You know, some people think just because I'm hurt, I broke my leg, I'm going to sit in my house for 6 weeks. Well, not everybody thinks that way. Some people break their leg and they're out the next day doing stuff. People who are differently abled are like that too. So that some may write it off and say, I'm going to stay home and just watch videos every day. Others are like, no, I want to go rock climbing. I want to go skydiving. I want to go in the ocean. I just want to do whatever interests me. And they have that right.
I mean, think about what he just said. Differently abled wants to have fun too. They want to do the same things that folks who are not differently abled can do. Just because they're differently able does not mean that they don't want to participate. And it sounds like Jim finds that every challenge is not a challenge as far as he's concerned. It's just something else to do that's fun, right?
We'll find a way to do it. You know, if we need specialized equipment, if we need duct tape, if we need, zip ties, if we need to, like for Michael's kayak, we had to get a specialized seat that I needed to mount in the kayak. The first year we did terrible. It was tough, but I learned a lot. So I knew in round 2, I needed a different kayak, and I needed.
So wait a minute, you went back again?
Yeah. And it's interesting, Cornell, is you launch at midnight, so it's dark. You're out in the ocean, and there's no
Can't see anything, no
street
light
lights. It's just dark, and it's just you in the ocean until the sun rises. When that sun rises at 6 in the morning, because you start at midnight and 6 in the morning, it's behind you. So, you can start to see the sky getting a little gray, and you're like, oh, man, the sun's coming up.
So you and your son are a whole lot braver than I am. So I'm not doing that. Nope. I'll fly over it. I'll parachute into it, but no, I'm not paddleboarding across it. No, that's not happening.
Well, it's funny you say parachuting, Colonel. I was in the military, too. I served in the Air Force 10 years. But my son, when he turned 18, him and his best friend both went skydiving.
Ah, really?
14,000
I know they loved it.
They loved it. It's on YouTube. He's got like 20,000 likes on it.
I love it. I loved it. Oh boy, that was some of the best times, was jumping out of an aircraft while in flight for me.
Yeah,
that was some of my best times. I loved it.
The first one was the scariest, but after that, it just gets easier.
Of my 24 years, I jumped out of planes for 20 of them. So it was something that I truly, truly enjoyed. And I haven't done it much lately in the last few years, but I go and occasionally get some skydives in every now and then. But it sounds like Jim just doesn't believe there's such thing as a challenge. Everyone, he just doesn't believe in that. So not only is your nonprofit doing some great work as far as getting this message out, but also I think encouraging the families of those folks who are disabled, right? Encouraging them to understand that their relatives, friends, and acquaintances want to go out and have fun and do those things that are important, right?
Well, Cornell, what's happening is there's a movement happening, and it's not just our impact organization. Other organizations like ours, we're all creating this movement of inclusion. And people now, if they see someone in a wheelchair standing in line at a coffee shop, maybe in some places they may still, may not say anything, because a lot of times people just need the knowledge to know that it's okay to talk to somebody, because they're just because they're in a chair doesn't mean they're an alien. They have a brain, they have a heart and lungs and bleed red just like all of us do. And they want to have conversation. They want to be social. They want community, just like all of us. I mean, we were born into this world for community. We're not designed to be alone. We're designed to be together with one another. It could be one person, 10 people, 1 million people. We all need to be together. And one of the goals that I want to achieve in this podcast is to let people know and give them the knowledge that people with disabilities They want to have conversation. They want to work. They want to go to school. They want to achieve. You know, when you see people that, you know, that have a disability working, you can feel very confident that that person in that workplace is less likely to call in sick, less likely to have drama, less likely to be late. People with disabilities are punctual. They take serious pride in the work that they do. They won't even take a break. They're just constantly going, task after task after task. You know, there's studies now that are showing that people with disabilities are becoming more reliable than mainstream folks. Mainstream folks are looking for a safe space. They want a mental health day.
Yes.
They're looking for all these things to minimize their work, whereas the person with disabilities is just sitting there at the edge of their seat saying, I want to go to work. Put me to work. Send me to the front line. I want to go.
Probably some of our best examples of that we should all be following, right?
Exactly.
It's so important that you get this message out there that those that are disabled are really no different than all of us. You know what I mean? There's really no difference. I'm really glad that you said that, you know, that they think and want to talk and want to be social and want to do the things that the rest of us want to do. I think that's so important, and not to treat them differently. Am I right?
Exactly. They want to be included just like everybody else. You know, they're just like, you know, a football player just sitting on the bench. You know, send me in, coach. Send me in. I want to go. Let me play. Let me get out there. You know, we just had a triathlon last weekend, and we served 17 people with disabilities and included 17 teams to do this triathlon. You know, most of the big races like Ironman, the big popular ones, usually only limit 5.
Really?
5. Here we had a local triathlon that allowed, we actually registered 20. But 3 of them didn't show up. You know, sometimes they get sick, and you know, there's different reasons why they didn't come. So we house them in Key Largo, get them a hotel, and the night before we have this big dinner at a local grill place right there on the Jimmy Johnson's Grill on the water.
Okay.
And they get to experience a night of fun and socialization with the people they're going to race with and interact. And you know, they don't get that like every Friday like most people do. They get that like once in a while.
Sure.
And with Special Compass, they are thrilled to do it. Like, we're going to take 40 of them on Monday to a Marlins game this coming Monday coming up.
Oh, that should be cool.
Yeah, you can come too if you want.
Unfortunately, I'm traveling to a bank meeting, but so I wanna. You said something earlier, a little further back. You said that these marathons or the big events limit the amount of disabled folks that could be in there. Really?
Yeah. So that's why sometimes you have to contact them very early in advance, because then you may be on a waiting list. And I'm like, you know what? Right before COVID, in Miami, they had a popular triathlon called Escape to Miami.
I remember.
So Escape to Miami, we had now. Because I've been doing this a long time, I get to know a lot of the race directors. So I asked the race director, I said, is it okay if I bring 10 disabled to this? And he says to me, he says, Jim, he says, that's kind of a lot. He says, you're going to need a lot of space. There's going to be equipment, this and this. He says, okay, yes. So he says, yes. He says, and then a week later, I asked for 15. And then he was like, I don't think so. And then he changed his mind. And then I called him again and asked for 25. So we went back and forth, and I'm really raising his blood pressure, right? And
I'm sure.
He's saying, Jim, what you're asking me is outrageous. You just don't see this anywhere. Anyway, we ended up finishing at 42.
Wow.
So 42 was the first year. Without incident. No drownings. No drownings, no crashes, no anything. Everybody crossed the finish line, got a medal. And he was beside himself. He says, Jim, I can't believe you guys pulled this off. We had 100 volunteers, and they were generous to give us our own venue. The Today Show wanted to do a whole documentary on us because they've never seen that many people with disabilities in a triathlon. I mean, you should have seen it. All these rafts that are in the bay crossing from that island. And what we did for them was, because there's a hotel right there on the bay, we housed everybody, all 40 all 42 disabled. So they all got to spend a little staycation in a hotel. We rented a ballroom, had a big dinner for them. We awarded them for different things like people getting jobs and, going to college and different things. So we awarded them, awarded some parents. So it was like a little party night. So first thing in the morning, they get out of bed and they're on this big boat taking them to this island away from the hotel, all in wheelchairs. And at the island is waiting for them are all these inflatable rafts, 42 of them.
Wow.
So the Coast Guard is blocking boats from going in there, right? So now they're all being attached to swimmers. So swimmers are attaching themselves to a bungee to swim across, pulling all these. You should have seen what that looked like, all these rafts going. And every raft that's going across that bay is got a swimmer pulling them.
I got to go back and check it out on YouTube. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere.
Escape to Miami. So we did that, and then we did it again the second year, right after that. And the Today Show was going to, like I said, they were going to do a documentary on us, but they were too busy with Trump and Hillary at the time. So we couldn't compete with that kind of media, and it got cold.
Not with the presidential election, not at all. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back.